Section 1. A Quiet Revolution. Biden's Drug Policy Shift. In October 2022, President Biden announced a significant shift in U.S. drug policy, initiating a review of marijuana's federal classification under the Controlled Substances Act. This move, though seemingly understated, carries profound implications, particularly for the military and veteran communities long grappling with the complexities of cannabis prohibition. The president's directive signals a potential departure from decades of strict federal enforcement, opening the door for broader access to medical cannabis and prompting a nationwide conversation on criminal justice reform. The legacy of the war on drugs has cast a long shadow over American society, and the military, with its zero-tolerance policies, has been deeply impacted. Biden's move to reevaluate marijuana's scheduling represents a tentative step away from this fraught history, offering a glimmer of hope for veterans seeking alternative treatments for PTSD, chronic pain, and other service-related conditions. However, the path forward remains uncertain, fraught with legal hurdles and cultural resistance. The president's directive has reignited debates within the military establishment, forcing a confrontation with long-held beliefs about marijuana and its perceived impact on discipline and readiness. While some high-ranking officials express cautious optimism, others remain wary, highlighting the potential for abuse and the need for further research. The road ahead demands a nuanced approach, one that balances the potential benefits of cannabis with the unique demands of military service. Biden's initiative has also spurred a surge in activism among veterans groups, who see the reclassification effort as an opportunity to address systemic inequities within the VA healthcare system. For years, veterans have been advocating for access to medical cannabis, arguing that it provides much-needed relief from the physical and psychological wounds of war. The president's actions, while not a complete solution, represent a crucial step towards acknowledging their plight and initiating meaningful change. Section 2. The military's marijuana dilemma, a legacy of prohibition. The relationship between the U.S. military and marijuana has long been characterized by tension and contradiction. While cannabis use is widespread in American society, the armed forces have maintained a strict prohibitionist stance, rooted in concerns about discipline, combat readiness, and the potential for impairment. This hardline approach, however, has come under increasing scrutiny, particularly as more states legalize marijuana for medical and recreational purposes. The military's zero-tolerance policy has created a stark disconnect between the experiences of service members and the society they are sworn to protect. In many cases, veterans returning from combat zones where cannabis use is commonplace are met with a rigid and unforgiving system that criminalizes a substance they view as therapeutic. This dissonance has fueled calls for reform, with advocates arguing that the current approach is outdated, counterproductive, and detrimental to the well-being of service members. The prohibition on marijuana within the military has also raised concerns about fairness and equity. Studies have shown that Black and Hispanic service members are disproportionately punished for marijuana-related offenses, despite similar usage rates among different racial groups. This disparity underscores the need for a more nuanced and equitable approach to drug policy within the armed forces, one that prioritizes rehabilitation over punishment and acknowledges the systemic factors contributing to these disparities. As the Biden administration embarks on its review of marijuana's federal classification, the military faces a critical juncture. Adhering to outdated policies risks alienating potential recruits, exacerbating existing inequalities, and denying service members access to potentially beneficial treatments. A more progressive approach, on the other hand, would require confronting deeply ingrained biases, navigating complex legal challenges, and fostering a culture of open dialogue and evidence-based decision-making. Section 3. Veterans and Cannabis. Navigating a shifting landscape. For many veterans, the end of their military service marks the beginning of a new battle, one fought against the invisible wounds of war. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, chronic pain, anxiety, and depression are just a few of the challenges that veterans often face upon returning home. As they navigate this difficult terrain, many are turning to cannabis as a potential source of relief, seeking solace in a plant that has been used medicinally for centuries. Despite growing evidence suggesting cannabis's therapeutic potential for treating a range of conditions common among veterans, access remains limited and fraught with legal and bureaucratic hurdles. While many states have legalized medical marijuana, veterans receiving healthcare through the Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, face a complex and often contradictory system. Federal law prohibits VA doctors from recommending or prescribing cannabis, forcing veterans to seek alternative avenues and navigate a confusing patchwork of state and federal regulations. This disconnect between state and federal laws has created a situation where veterans are often caught in the crossfire, unable to access a potentially life-changing treatment through their government-provided healthcare. Many veterans, frustrated by the lack of options within the VA system, are forced to turn to the private market, incurring significant expenses and facing potential legal risks. This situation highlights the urgent need for comprehensive reform, one that aligns federal policy with the growing body of scientific evidence and the lived experiences of veterans. The Biden administration's decision to review marijuana's scheduling has injected a sense of cautious optimism into the veteran community. Many see this as a long overdue step towards recognizing the potential of cannabis to address the unique healthcare needs of those who have served. However, translating this policy shift into tangible improvements in veterans' lives will require a concerted effort to address the legal barriers, bureaucratic roadblocks, and cultural stigmas that continue to hinder access to this potentially transformative plant. Section 4. Legal murkiness, uniformed service, and state-level changes. The increasing prevalence of state-level marijuana legalization has created a complex legal landscape for active-duty military personnel. While federal law still classifies marijuana as a Schedule I drug, creating a blanket prohibition for all service members, the growing acceptance of cannabis in civilian society presents a unique challenge for military leaders grappling with issues of discipline, enforcement, and fairness. The patchwork of state laws regarding marijuana use has created a situation where service members stationed in states with legal cannabis may find themselves at odds with federal regulations. This dissonance can create confusion, anxiety, and a sense of unfairness, particularly for those who use cannabis medicinally in accordance with state law, but face potential repercussions under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ. This legal ambiguity also raises concerns about the equitable application of military law. Service members stationed in states with more lenient marijuana laws may be subject to less stringent enforcement compared to those stationed in states with stricter policies. This inconsistency can lead to perceptions of inequality and erode trust in the fairness of the military justice system. Addressing this legal quagmire will require a comprehensive and nuanced approach, clarifying the relationship between state and federal marijuana laws, providing clear guidance to service members, and ensuring consistent enforcement across state lines are essential steps towards creating a more just and equitable system. Additionally, exploring alternative approaches to discipline, such as prioritizing treatment and rehabilitation over punishment for marijuana-related offenses, could help to mitigate the negative consequences of the current legal ambiguity. Section 5. Military justice at a crossroads, addressing past injustices. The Biden administration's move to reassess marijuana's federal classification has also shone a light on the issue of past injustices within the military justice system. For decades, the zero-tolerance policy towards marijuana has disproportionately impacted minority service members, who are statistically more likely to be apprehended, charged, and punished for marijuana-related offenses, despite comparable usage rates across racial groups. This disparity in enforcement is symptomatic of a broader pattern of racial bias within the military justice system, reflecting similar trends observed in civilian law enforcement. Addressing this systemic issue requires a multifaceted approach that includes reviewing and revising existing policies, implementing mandatory bias training for all personnel involved in the military justice process, and collecting and analyzing data to identify and address disparities in enforcement and sentencing. Beyond addressing racial disparities, the potential reclassification of marijuana presents an opportunity to reassess the very nature of military justice in relation to drug offenses. The current punitive approach, which prioritizes punishment over rehabilitation, often fails to address the underlying reasons for marijuana use, such as PTSD, chronic pain, or the stresses of military life. A more progressive approach would prioritize treatment, counseling, and support services, recognizing that substance use is often a symptom of deeper issues. By treating marijuana use as a public health issue rather than a criminal one, the military can create a more just and compassionate system that prioritizes the well-being of its service members. Section 6. Healthcare hurdles VA policy and the need for reform. The potential rescheduling of marijuana at the federal level has significant implications for the Veterans Health Administration, the government agency tasked with providing healthcare to America's veterans. While many veterans view medical cannabis as a viable treatment option for a range of service-connected conditions, the VA's current policies, bound by federal law, severely restrict access to this potentially beneficial therapy. Under current regulations, Virginia physicians are prohibited from recommending or prescribing medical marijuana, even in states where it is legal. This policy puts veterans in a difficult position, forcing them to choose between following their doctor's orders and accessing a treatment they believe could improve their quality of life. This situation highlights the urgent need for policy reform to align VA practices with the evolving scientific understanding of cannabis and the needs of veterans. The VA's restrictive stance on medical marijuana stands in stark contrast to the growing body of evidence suggesting its potential benefits for treating conditions common among veterans, such as PTSD, chronic pain, and anxiety. Studies have shown that cannabis can effectively reduce PTSD symptoms, alleviate chronic pain, and improve sleep quality, offering a glimmer of hope for veterans struggling with these debilitating conditions. To truly address the healthcare needs of veterans, the VA must adopt a more progressive and evidence-based approach to medical cannabis. This includes allowing VA physicians to discuss cannabis as a treatment option, facilitating research into its efficacy and safety for specific conditions, and developing clear guidelines for its use within the VA healthcare system. By embracing a more compassionate and informed approach, the VA can ensure that veterans have access to the full range of treatment options available, empowering them to take control of their health and well-being. Section 7. Cultural acceptance, shifting tides within the ranks. The national conversation surrounding marijuana legalization is gradually permeating the traditionally conservative culture of the U.S. military. While the armed forces have long maintained a strict zero-tolerance policy towards cannabis, the increasing acceptance of marijuana in civilian society, coupled with growing awareness of its potential therapeutic benefits, is prompting a gradual shift in attitudes within the ranks. This cultural shift is particularly evident among younger service members who have come of age in an era where marijuana use is increasingly normalized. These recruits, often more familiar with the nuances of cannabis and its various forms, may hold different views compared to older generations within the military, prompting a generational divide in perceptions and acceptance. This evolving cultural landscape presents both challenges and opportunities for military leaders. On the one hand, maintaining discipline and upholding the uniform code of military justice remains paramount. On the other hand, acknowledging the changing societal norms and the potential benefits of cannabis for some service members requires a nuanced approach that balances tradition with the need to adapt to a changing world. Fostering open and honest dialogue about marijuana within the military is essential to bridging this cultural divide. Educating service members about the risks and benefits of cannabis, addressing misconceptions, and promoting responsible use can help to create a more informed and understanding environment. By engaging in constructive conversations, the military can begin to dismantle the stigma surrounding marijuana and foster a culture that prioritizes the well-being of its service members. Section 8. A new era of research understanding cannabis and military life. The Biden administration's initiative to reevaluate marijuana's federal classification has created a unique opportunity to expand research into the potential applications of cannabis for active-duty military personnel and veterans. Decades of prohibition have severely limited scientific inquiry into this complex plant, hindering our understanding of its potential benefits and risks in the context of military service. Lifting research restrictions would allow scientists to conduct rigorous studies on the effects of cannabis on a range of issues relevant to the military, including PTSD, traumatic brain injury, chronic pain, sleep disorders, and anxiety. Understanding how cannabis interacts with these conditions could lead to the development of targeted therapies that improve the lives of service members and veterans. Moreover, research is crucial for informing evidence-based policies regarding cannabis use within the military. By studying the impact of cannabis on cognitive function, decision-making, and combat readiness, policymakers can make informed decisions about potential risks and develop appropriate guidelines for its use. Expanding research into cannabis and its effects on military populations requires a collaborative effort between government agencies, academic institutions, and private industry. Increased funding for cannabis research, coupled with streamlined regulations and greater access to research-grade cannabis, will be essential for unlocking the full potential of this plant and harnessing its benefits for those who have served our country. Section 9. Charting the course towards a more informed and compassionate future. The Biden administration's move to review marijuana's federal classification has set in motion a series of events with the potential to reshape the relationship between cannabis, the military, and veteran communities. This period of transition demands thoughtful consideration, open dialogue, and a commitment to evidence-based decision-making. Navigating this uncharted territory requires acknowledging the complex history of cannabis prohibition, addressing past injustices, and recognizing the evolving cultural landscape. It necessitates a nuanced approach that balances the potential benefits of cannabis with the unique demands of military service, while prioritizing the well-being of those who have served our country. Moving forward, policymakers, military leaders, and healthcare providers must work together to develop a comprehensive framework for cannabis policy that prioritizes justice and equity, addressing racial disparities in enforcement, ensuring equitable access to treatment, and providing pathways for veterans with prior cannabis convictions to access benefits and opportunities. Scientific inquiry, expanding research into the therapeutic potential of cannabis for service-connected conditions, investigating its impact on military readiness, and developing evidence-based guidelines for its use. Compassionate care, empowering veterans to make informed decisions about their health, providing access to medical cannabis through the VA, and supporting veterans who choose to use cannabis responsibly. By embracing a more informed, compassionate, and evidence-based approach, the U.S. can chart a course towards a future where cannabis is no longer demonized, but rather recognized for its potential to heal, alleviate suffering, and improve the lives of those who have dedicated themselves to serving our nation.